If you like Star Trek and Star Wars and you like ship battles, you'll like this channel. And if you like what you see, please subscribe and make a comment. It helps. It really does. And with that being said, let's get started. Alright, so today we're going to talk about the iconic bird of prey from Star Trek. So this ship was first seen in the motion picture, and it was attacking the Enterprise. But one of the things I want to talk about is how dangerous this ship really is. A lot of people underestimate the bird of prey because of its size. But this ship may be small, but it's packing a heavy punch. It has a photon torpedo tube as well as two powerful disruptor cannons. It's also carrying a highly advanced shield for its time. Not only could the bird of prey take it, it could dish it. This ship was versatile and was incredibly powerful for a ship of its size. There was nothing to even compare to it during this time period. The two other pieces of technology that made this ship state of the art. The fact that it was automated so much so that it was only necessary to have 12 members to run this starship. The second part is the fact that this small starship was capable of carrying its own cloaking device. This Klingon warship is capable of operating with 12 crew members, but has a standard crew of 36. It also has a mass of 236,000, compared to the Enterprise, which is approximately 1,000, with a crew of 500. Now, a Constitution-class starship can operate with 300 crew, so we're going to look at that, but we're saying the standard is 500, but the mass is 1 million. Now, when you compare that to the bird of prey, you can see that there's an advantage to the bird of prey in its design. You can crew 40 of these starships for every Constitution. You can build 4 of these starships for every Constitution. It becomes a game of numbers, which the Klingons are evidently going to win. If it wasn't for how valuable and effective this ship was, when Craxus exploded the moon over the home planet of the Klingon Empire, the economy collapsed, they would have been done for. If it wasn't for this powerful, cheap, low-maintenance starship, it kept the Empire strong, viable, and a threat, even though it had very little funds during this time period. It still had an effective army. When you compare this ship to the Katanga or the D7, you can see that this ship is far superior in every form and manner. Yes, on a one-on-one, this ship is stronger. But from an overall logistics standpoint, you have to use almost the same amount of resources to build a D7 or a Katanga, but you're not even equivalent to that of the Constitution-class starship. Your materials are just being wasted. Imagine a scenario where a Klingon bird of prey decloaks over a mining station. The mining station is in deep space, and they send out an SOS that they're under attack by a Klingon bird of prey. What's going to happen? They're going to send a starship to investigate, to assist. Most likely that starship will be a Constitution class or a Miranda. So in our scenario, we're going to pretend like they sent a Constitution-class starship. From the perspective of the Constitution-class starship, it's in Federation territory, it's on the border, it's being attacked by a solo target. That solo target is the Klingon bird of prey, which they have no problem, and they know that they're going to be able to take that ship out. But what they have to worry about is where there's one bird of prey, there is probably another, hiding and waiting. So it's going to be like this. It's going to be something pretty simple. It's going to be as simple as the Constitution-class starship brings into the sector, the Klingon cloak ships are going to tail it and follow it, and they're going to lead it to the main ship. Once the two starships engage in combat, the supporting birds of prey will then surprise the Constitution class, and it will put it into a pincer grip where it's being attacked from multiple angles. And then if the bird of prey is damaged, it can cloak and retreat while the other two continue to attack until they can bring the ship down. Based on the logistics that we've seen in the movie, one bird of prey is no match for a Federation Constitution class starship. But two birds of prey is another story. 3 birds of prey is a death sentence. We know the Klingon Empire's economic situation wasn't good after the destruction of Praxis, so they were forced to budget everything they did from that point on. I really feel that the Klingon Empire only survived into the next TNG era as a superpower for the fact that they had the Klingon bird of prey. The Klingon bird of prey was cheap, efficient, and deadly, and they had a lot of these ships. I really think that they gave up on building large starships. I think for a long time, the Klingon Empire was basically stagnant and was stuck with the bird of prey, not because they couldn't do anything, but because it was just so economically sound to keep building this ship and to create so many ships with so many numbers that their enemies would always be wondering, are there Klingon ships around? Are they not? And there's no way to know how many ships the Klingons have. It's kind of the same kind of tactics that we've seen with the Romulans, where you don't really know how many ships they have or don't have. But we know that the Romulans were poking at the Klingons here and there. But you notice they never fully went after the Klingons. They never engaged them in an all-out war. And a lot of speculation is because the Romulans just didn't want to. That's just not the way they are. I really don't think that's the case. I think the Romulans were perfectly aware because they still had a lot of allies, and they were at some point allies with the Klingons. So they had a good idea of the Klingon infrastructure and weapon capabilities of their ships. They've been trading for decades. They were aligned for a certain amount of time. But as that alliance fell apart, I really think the Romulans realized that it would just be too dangerous to mess with the Klingons too much. Yes, there'd be a Cold War, there would be border disputes, but you got to remember, there were a lot of powerful houses that were still working and aligned with the Romulans. And the Romulans and the Klingons have a pretty good understanding of what one another can do. Much more better so than the Federation did with the Romulans or the Federation did with the Klingons in the beginning. Now, later on, you would see the large Cavort class bird of prey. I think the second time that the Klingon bird of prey helped keep the Empire strong is when they created the Cavort. Now, the Cavort did have a lot of weaknesses, but it could do some things that the Klingon Empire desperately needed. Number one, they needed a large troop transport. The Cavort was capable of delivering 1,500 troops. Now, the Cavort is 1,890 metric tons, meaning it's about a medium-class cruiser, but it's able to deliver a decent amount of firepower, and it has a strong defense. Its shields were state-of-the-art, and it gave the Klingon Empire a ship that isn't incredibly expensive, but is effective, and was used to defend its borders. Another thing to be said about the Cavort is it was a good ship. It was effective at what it did, it was cheap, and it was efficient. And it did a really good job against large, slower-moving capital-class starships. It was good against the Galore. It was good against the Enterprise. It was good against the Enterprise B. This ship was capable of taking out a lot of ships in its same class or bigger because of the way it could fight, and the same tactics that were used originally with the original Burrell were still being used with the Cavort. It wasn't until the Dominion War that this ship completely fell out of favor. Unfortunately, the Cavort was not very maneuverable, and it didn't have any way of defending itself when it was outflanked. So if you were a fast-moving ship like the Jem'Hadar fighter, this was nothing more than a giant sitting target. The Cavort completely fell out of favor after the Dominion War, and for good reason. It didn't have any way of defending itself from the rear or from the side, and all you needed to do was get out of the way of its big, powerful forward-facing weapons, and the ship was useless. So I hope you guys can see that I have an argument that these ships, the Klingon bird of prey, were fantastic ships. They kept the Klingon Empire strong. They kept him vital. If it wasn't for this, they would have fallen apart. They would have fallen apart a long time ago. They would have been a medium power at best instead of a galactic superpower, one of the top three. And for that reason, I believe that the bird of prey is the reason the Klingon Empire stayed relevant. If it wasn't for the Klingon bird of prey, they would have fallen to the Federation or they would have fallen to the Romulans. And then when TNG came around, the K-Vort was keeping them up to date and was keeping their borders safe from large attack ships. The Klingons have a very good philosophy. If it works, keep on using it. They don't waste their time like the Federation building dozens and dozens of different ships doing specific jobs. They built something that works, and it worked well, and they kept with it. And when it stopped working, they stopped building it. And it was that simple. So this is my reasoning, and this is my argument why I think the Klingon Bird of Prey was the best ship ever produced by the Klingons, and why I think it saved the Empire. And this is my argument. Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think there was another ship that kept the Klingon Empire at float that I missed? If so, let me know in the comments. I'd be glad to talk to you about it. And with that being said,
Mark the Brock.